So let's talk about the value proposition to the customer. What does that really mean? What does it mean to have benefits for the customer? Well, what problem do you solve? What need do you address? What obstacle are you overcoming? Basically, it gets down to that. And once we start to focus on need rather than desire, we're starting to head into the right direction. The concept that you need to work on is what's called the compelling need to buy. What I want to do is I want to be in a situation where someone proactively comes to me because I've got a solution to their problem, and their problem is sufficiently urgent that they can't delay. Now, it would also be nice if I had the only solution. In other words, I had a strong competitive advantage. But for the moment, let's just stick to the compelling need to buy. The strongest compelling need to buy is associated with physical or mental pain. If I can stop you dying, if I can stop you suffering serious physical or psychological pain, I'm probably going to attract your interest. If I have something that will prevent you from going to jail, or will stop you suffering a severe financial penalty, I've probably got your attention. But now, let's go to the other end of the scale. Let's go out into the shopping mall and buy an ice cream. What's the maximum price you'd be willing to pay for an ice cream? Well, the first consideration is there's lots of competition. The second consideration is there's lots of alternatives and lots of substitutes. And of course, the last consideration is I can do without it. So, where we're looking at a problem to solve, if the customer can delay the purchase, can find many alternatives, or can in fact do without it, then you have a very low compelling need to buy. What we need to do in a high growth potential venture is move as much as we can towards the highest compelling need. And they are clearly around physical and mental pain, saving lives, and solving compliance problems. Now, psychological need is also associated with peer group pressure. And so things like brands and designer labels have an element of psychological pain within them. So, compelling need becomes one of the highest hurdles to overcome in any proposition. I had one business in sales forecasting where we would predict the decrease in the investment of inventory through much more reliable and more sophisticated forecasting. We would use the customer's data to process a sample of forecasts to show them that we could readily achieve a 10 million or a 20 million reduction in their inventory. Since the product could be installed for $500,000 and would have a payback of less than 6 months, you would think that this would be a very easy product to sell. In fact, it was extremely difficult. Not because it didn't have a good payback, but because the value proposition was simply saving costs. The problem was it was very difficult organisationally to install. You had to combine some jobs, combine departments, give responsibility to someone else for the numbers, or change the organisation structure. All too hard, and it went into the too hard basket. So cost savings alone simply don't give us a compelling need to buy. In fact, when I looked at our successful sales some 5 years later, what I discovered was that only those corporations that were in serious trouble, that were forced to reduce their inventory to save investment or to increase their margins, were in fact prepared to make this very small investment to introduce the software. So the compelling need is critical in high growth enterprises, and figuring out how you can reposition your product or service to direct it towards the highest compelling need is an absolute key to driving growth and profitability.